Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Tuesday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early, man. It's 3:30 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, how should I start this video off? All right. As of late, I've noticed, my views go up, my views go down. A lot of times, I find a story and I feel very strongly about it. And I spend time looking at the links and trying to justify my position and, how are people going to argue? So I spend a lot of time on it. And I'm like, wow, this is a good story. This, I think I have a good point. And then the next day I get 45 views. That's okay. That's okay. And lately it's happened more. I'm getting to a point here. When that happens, sometimes I guess I just get frustrated after a point. And like this morning, I was going to talk about Tucker Carlson. That's the big story. Tucker Carlson getting fired from Fox. So I was going to talk about that. I also wanted to talk about Mike Pence and wanting to have the whole country against the procedure. At first they just wanted it, let the states decide, they said. And now their goal is for the whole country to make the procedure illegal, or at least in some version of it. There's a few other things, the LGBTQ thing, the trans thing I want to talk about. Like, why is it even any of your business? If a parent brings their kid to a drag show, and say the kid does tip a drag performer, how is it any of your business? How does it affect you in any way? What if you let your kid around a Rottweiler? And I cite all these occasions when a dog attacked children. And I'm all outraged by this. You can't let your kid next to this. I'm not comparing the LGBTQ community to Rottweilers, but you get my point. It's none of your freaking business. I was going to talk about that. As you can tell, I'm pretty wound up this morning. But when my views go down, I get to a point sometimes where I just get frustrated. And I say, you know what? I tried. I spend a couple hours. I wake up at 2 a.m. I spend a few hours researching, making a thumbnail and everything, and then I get 40 views. And then I get to a point where I say, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to just talk about whatever the heck I want to talk about. And whatever views it gets, because it's going to get the same now. It's going to get at least 40 views anyway, so what? I'm just going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And that's what I'm going to do this morning. All right. Something occurred to me this morning, and I had never realized this before. Why didn't me personally, why didn't I flip out? I had the ways and means and the justification or the background that a lot of children or kids or teenagers that are involved in these mass incidents, schools and stuff like that. I had all that in my background, but why didn't I flip out? And I'm asking this seriously. I'm not like patting myself on the back. I didn't flip out, so why are they? That's not what I'm saying. I'm seriously asking, what is it about my upbringing, what makes people different? Why is this? Okay, here's my point. Okay, well, I'll have to tell you how I grew up a little bit. If you've already heard this, stick with me. I grew up out in the woods. My father was the park ranger, the head guy at a big state park in Connecticut. And with that job, we moved into a house, the house that was in the park, a big old house cabin built in the 1800s, and it had all the barns and maintenance buildings and everything behind it. My father ran all the people in the park. He was the head of the park. Okay, he also had a large gun collection. I'd say at least probably 10 pistols, a good 25 rifles, and a good 10 plus different shotguns. Probably just under 40 total firearms down in the basement. And he had ammo boxes, full of ammo. He used to go to the armories, the shows. This was his, so he enjoyed hunting and he collected these guns. Okay, and I had full access to them. He had me shooting and learning about guns, and also there was always a loaded 12-gauge shotgun in my parents' room. It was an Antonio Zoli Italian shotgun, over and under, one trigger, and it was always loaded with double-aught buck. That's like each shell Each 12 gauge shell contained like 7 or 8 metal marbles, you know. And I remember him having me shoot that gun. We used to have up in the field up behind the house, they would bring the old changing rooms. You know, they'd pick up the whole like shack, the changing rooms and the outhouses, and they'd put them up in the back field, way up behind my house. So we'd go up there, we'd practice, he'd teach me to shoot. And I remember shooting an outhouse door, you know, an old house door. And, you know, he told me never aim the shotgun, point it. And I pulled that trigger hard, and both barrels let off, and it set me flying backwards. He died when I was 9, so I was probably 7 years old. And it just blew that door right, you know, it left like a figure 8 in the door, and it just smoke and splinters, you know, just blew that thing right off the hinges. And, you know, I pictured, oh my God, you know, I had respect for that gun. Okay, move forward. My father got terminal brain cancer when I was 8, going on 9 years old, and within 6 months he passed away. Terminal brain cancer. We stayed in that house. You know, it took a while. Nobody wanted to kick the widow and her kids out of the house because they had to get a new head of the park. So obviously, even at, you know, 10, 11 years old, I knew we were going to end up losing not only just my father, but I was going to lose where I lived too. Okay, and we stayed in the house till I was 14. My mother eventually started dating again. And there used to be police that would, you know, patrol around because there was no neighbors. You know, there was no street lights. We lived in the middle of a forest, basically, on this deserted road. And the local police, it was on the town line, so police from this town and this town would patrol down to check on the widow, my mother, and her kids. And my mother started dating this one cop. And he eventually started molesting me. This was before we moved to another town. Okay, that's the background. Something occurred to me this morning. And also, okay, back when I was younger, I was overweight. I was one of the biggest kids, like whenever they took the school photos, I was one of the biggest, tallest kids in the class. You know, I grew to 6'4". I'm a little shorter than that now, but I was one of the biggest kids in the class. But I was quiet. I was on the quiet side, and I was a bit overweight. I broke a bone. I broke my leg skiing when I was 12, and I put on weight then. And I tended to get, you know, I had a lot of good, close friends that I loved. But I tended to get picked on by the bullies sometimes because I wouldn't, it took me, I would hit a point of rage where I would just destroy somebody. But up to that, I wouldn't fight back. And it made me a target for bullies a lot of times. And not just bullies, but I remember teachers. I remember teachers making fun of me. I remember in the hot summer months, I remember sticking to my papers on the desk because, you know, there's no air conditioner in school. And I remember the teacher saying something about, well, if you lost weight, you wouldn't sweat so much. She says it right in front of the whole class. You know, I still remember this. Here's the point I'm getting to. I never realized this, you know. After my dad died, all those weapons stayed downstairs on the racks, the ammo boxes and everything. I had full access. I inherited these guns when I was 18, but I had full access to them after my dad passed away from 9 years old on. Full access. My mother didn't even know. I guarantee you my mother, I could have taken 5 guns and my mother would have never even known. Never known in a million years. All right? And all of a sudden this morning, it occurred to me, you know, all the stuff that happened. And I'm saying this seriously, and I'm wondering what has changed. And how come I didn't flip out? You know, it never once, I swear on the Bible, I would remember this. It never once occurred to me to go down and grab one of these and go nuts, you know? And never once. I remember looking forward to the weekend so much because I feared school. At some points, I would get on the bus. I remember getting kicked in the back on the bus. I remember getting gum thrown in my hair, you know, because I was kind of quiet back then until I reached a point, and I was a target for the bully, like I said, you know. And I remember being so scared. I didn't even want to go to school. I hated the, you know, Monday through Friday, you know, and then everything else that was going on in my life, you know. And I'm not saying I'm the most stable person either, because obviously once I moved, I started using drugs, and I became a full-blown drug addict, you know. So I was never all that, you know, there was something wrong with me, but how come? I'm asking this seriously. I wonder what's different, that it never once occurred to me to go nuts. But how come? Why? What prompts that? Is it something that's going on today? Is it something in the water? Is it the movies? Is it everything together? Is it society? Because you look at kids today, and they see these kids are picked on. They're quiet. They're loners. They're picked on, like Adam Lanza here in Connecticut. I wasn't like Adam Lanza, but I was quiet because I grew up in the middle of the woods. I went off on my own to build forts by myself in the woods with my dog and all the animals and stuff. I was a loner. So how come? How come that never even occurred to me? This morning I started thinking, the first time I did have a thought similar to that once. I got in a fight. I got beat up. I told you guys I came out of roller skating and I got my nose broke and everything. And I started taking karate. And I worked my way up in karate to, I don't know if it was a red belt or whatever. And I remember being on a bus. I was probably about 15 years old. And I was sitting in the middle of the bus. And there was people sitting all around me. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, I could do so much damage to all these people. I could hit this person, twist this person's neck, and kick that person, and how much damage could I do to all these people before somebody stopped me? And this is the first time, I remember this vividly. I don't know why I thought that. I wasn't angry at the time, but it occurred to me that I suddenly had that power. And if I wanted to, I could do that. It's a messed up thought. I still remember it, and I don't know why I thought it. It never came again, but I remember it that one day on the bus. But all those days with all that stuff right in my hands, nobody would have ever known it was gone. How come I never flipped out? It's a serious question. I'm not, like I said, I'm not patting myself on the back. Has something changed? Is it something in the DNA? I don't know. It's a serious question. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. And like I said, I decided just to talk about whatever the heck I wanted to talk about today, and views be damned. And I'll probably do it again tomorrow. If you don't like it, too bad. If you like it, great. And for the people that are watching my videos, thank you so much for sticking with me. I'll probably talk about Tucker Carlson or whatever, normal stuff again tomorrow, but this just occurred to me today. I don't know why. Oh, let me talk about this one more thing. I do remember, I talked about this before. There was one night, me and my mother were sitting watching TV. I was probably about 12 years old, and I knew that shotgun was still loaded. And my baby sister was asleep in her bedroom. And a car pulled up, and I could hear a bunch of kids yelling. And I hear things smashing. I thought they were coming in the house. And I look at my mother, and my mother's panicking. She's frozen with fear on the couch. And it was up to me at that one moment, should I run and get the shotgun? Because I think they're going to come through the door. And, we're in the middle of the forest, it's all up to me. This is the moment I become a man. And I got up and I started to run for the bedroom. And I heard the car take off. And I didn't have to follow through. But, in that case, I was willing to go for it. How come I was not maladjusted? Like all the stuff we see happening today. And like I said, I'm not patting myself on the back here. It's a serious question. Is it something in the DNA? Is it movies? How come it never occurred to me after, the fear that I was living in and the anger that I dealt with and everything that went on in my life? It never even occurred to me after what happened with my mother's boyfriend and him trying to grab me. Never occurred, never once crossed my mind to grab one of those things in the basement and go take it out. Take out my anger, my fear on somebody. Never once occurred to me. I don't know why. I don't know. If we could figure that out, maybe we could do something. Okay, that's today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good Tuesday.